Hello everyone. I hope all of you have gone through the previous video that I have uploaded for this chapter. Now we are on the last topic of this chapter, that is the events in sexual reproduction. If we talk about this chapter, so what is that? What in how many steps, in how many ways that this type of mode is going to complete, that we will discuss in this chapter. So in the previous model, we will get to know, okay, sexuality in animals. We talked about the monoecious, dioecious, bisexual, unisexual, different kind of organism. In all the cases, the events in sexual reproduction is same. So that we will discuss how this process proceed in all the living organism. All step by step events that take place during the sexual reproduction is I have shown in this flow chart. What is that? Now you see in that sexual reproduction basically categorized into three. What is that? Pre-fertilization events, fertilization events, and post-fertilization events. What is the meaning of pre-fertilization events? All the events of sexual reproduction that take place before the fusion of gametes, that comes in this event. Fertilization, you know very well what is that? Fusion of male and female gamete, that we call as a fertilization. Another name of fertilization is the syngamy. When the fertilization takes place, that time there is a formation of a zygote, and after that the last stage or events in the sexual reproduction is the post fertilization events. In that, what happens? Zygote formation take place, and after that zygote change into the embryo, so that process is known as embryogenesis. So in simply we can say events in sexual reproduction categorized into three, that is a pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. So first is a pre-fertilization events. As I told you, what is the meaning of pre-fertilization events? Means all the events that take place before the fertilization, that we call as a pre-fertilization events. Now point is that for the fertilization, what we need? We need the gamete. It means what is the first stage of the pre-fertilization, that is the formation of gametes. So formation of a gamete in pre-fertilization event is known as gametogenesis, and after that these gametes are going to transfer where from the one individual to the another individual, or you can say one part of the body into the another part of the body. If they are bisexual, if they are unisexual, it depends on that. So first thing that comes in a pre-fertilization event is the formation of gametes. So the process of formation of male and female gametes always haploid, you should remember that. So what is that? This formation of gametes is known as gametogenesis. Now gametogenesis is the process of formation. On depend on that, what the type of gametes are two types. One is known as a heterogamete and second one is known as the homogametes. So what is the difference between hetero and homogametes, that we will discuss in this diagram. What is that? When first thing is a homogamete. What is the meaning of homogametes, or another name we use for the homogamete is the isogametes. Now you can see in this diagram, what is that? Homogametes or isogametes, the same word we are using. There is one example is given, that is a cladophora. Cladophora is one of the algae. Now what is isogametes? Means when the gametes are similar in appearance and you cannot differentiate between them. Okay, now you can see in this diagram also, what is that? You cannot, after seeing this, you cannot say that this is a male gamete or this is a female gamete. Means morphologically they are similar. Both the gametes is having a flagella, both of them is motile or mobile, you can say. So on the basis of that, these gametes are similar, so that time gametes are known as isogametes. Another category of gamete is known as a heterogametes. Now you can see in this, that is the diagram of fucus I have shown over here. This is what heterogametes of the human beings. So when the gametes are morphologically dissimilar, now you can see this. This is a microgametes, means male gamete. This is the macrogametes, female gamete. And one thing you should remember, whenever we talk about an isogamete or a heterogamete condition, that time male gamete is mostly motile and smaller in size. Female gamete is non-motile and bigger in size. You can see in this diagram also. If you see the gametes of the humans, or Homo sapiens is a scientific name, when you see this diagram you can see very well. This is the female gamete, means egg or ovum. This is the male gamete, means sperm. Now male gamete is having this tail for the motility, and female gamete doesn't have, so it means male gametes are motile and female gamete is non-motile. So this condition is known as heterogametes or anisogametes. In case of heterogametes, the male reproductive unit is known as an anthrozoid. Another name of the sperm is the anthrozoid in case of plants. If you remember in bryophytes, we had discussed that anthrozoids and spermatozoids, these terms we had used over there. So this is the another name, anthrozoids, and if we talk about the female gamete, we call it as an egg or ovum. Now what happens, depend on the condition, whether the plants are monoecious, dioecious, or they are unisexual, bisexual, or the organisms are having a haploid body or they have a diploid body. So on the basis of that, gamete formation take place. Now see, it is very simple. If the organism is haploid, means they don't have a chromosome in pair, so that time what happens, they just divide, their reproductive part or reproductive cells divide and the form gametes. Means as I told you, gametes are always haploid, they have a single number of chromosomes. But if the organisms are diploid, they have a chromosomes number in pair, and you know, whenever there is a gamete formation, gamete should be haploid, means they have a single chromosome number. So in that case, if the organism is diploid, in that case there should be a reduction division from diploid to the haploid condition. So that in that case, the diploid cell of the diploid organism, we call that a specialized cell as a myocyte cells, means gamete mother cell, and which participate in the production of gametes. I think it's clear. Again I repeat, in case of diploid organism, the specialized cell which participate in the formation of gamete, that cells are known as myocyte cell. And when they are they divide by the meiotic division, means there is a reduction in chromosomes number, and after that this chromosome number, when it is going to be half, that time there is a formation of male and female gamete. You should remember this. This is very important point for the gametogenesis. So second step in the pre-fertilization event is the after the formation of gamete, what should be the next step for the fertilization? That gamete should be transferred from one part to the another part, right? So if the plants are means there is a lower plants, for example algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, in that case what happens, you know, from the previous slide, males gamete are motile and females are non-motile. So it is very obvious, male will start traveling or transfer from male body to the female body. So in that case, if we talk about the algae, we talk about the bryophytes, that time there is what, there is a medium, they need medium for the transfer of gamete or a male gamete. The medium for them is the water, right? But in case of seeded plant, for example angiosperm, so in angiosperm what happens, the male gametes present where, in the stamen, and in the stamen there is a structure that we call as a pollen grain, and pollen grain is keeping that male gamete inside it. So what happens, so they should be out from the stamen, and it should reach to the stigma of the flower. So that process, by that pollen grains transfer the male gamete from stamen to the stigma. That process is known as pollination. And when pollen grains reaches to the stigma, they germinate, form a pollen tube, and reaches to the ovule, and there is a next event take place of the sexual reproduction. Now you can see this diagram, there is, I have shown you the process of pollination. What is there? There is two type of pollination. Now pollination, I think it's clear to everyone. What is that? Transfer of pollen from the stamen to the stigma, that we call as a pollination. Pollination is two type. One is known as a self pollination and another one is known as a cross pollination. Now you can see in this diagram what is the meaning of self pollination. This is what, this is the anther, and this is what this is your carpel. Carpel is a female part. This is what this is the male part. So in this there is what this is the anther, right? Inside the anther there is what there is the pollen grains. Pollen grains having a male gamete. So what happens? Pollen grains release from this anther and they reach to the stigma of the flower, of the same flower. So that time we call it as a self pollination. But when we talk about now, you can see in this cross pollination what happens from the anther of the one flower, pollen is going to transfer to the stigma of the another flower. So there is a crossing between the two different flowers. So pollination is known as cross pollination. So this is the way of gamete transfer in the organisms. So second event of sexual reproduction is what? That is a syngamy and fertilization. What is that? Fertilization means fusion of the male and female gamete, that we call as a fertilization. And when the fertilization take place, there is a formation of a zygote. There is a formation of actually a diploid zygote. What is the meaning of diploid zygote over here? Now you know what is the gametes are haploid. So male gamete is having a one haploid, and female gamete is also haploid. When the haploid gamete fuse, two haploid gamete fuse, they make the structure that is diploid, and that we call as a zygote. Now there is a very unique phenomena take place in some of the organism. For example, if we talk about the rotifers, honeybees, lizard, some birds also, for example turkey, female gametes directly in, what is the meaning of that? Female gametes means egg develop into an organism without fertilization, that we call as a parthenogenesis. If we talk about the honeybee, a very interesting thing is there, phenomena is seen. The fertilized egg means the zygote give rise to queen and worker bees, and the unfertilized egg develop into drones or males. Again I repeat it, this is very important for your board exam also. What I have told you, in honey bees there is a fertilization also take place. So fertilized egg, or you can say zygote, give rise to the queens and workers, right? But the unfertilized egg develop into drones, or you can say male. So this is a unique thing that we see in the honeybees. Another term we use like parthenogenesis, that is a parthenocarpy. What is the meaning of this term? Especially we use for the plants. So what is the meaning of parthenocarpy? It is a production of fruit without fertilization of the ovules. So that in this case the resulting fruit is a seedless fruit. So that we call as a parthenocarpy. So this is one of the important phenomena that take place during the during some of the organism. Those don't go by this simple fertilization. So if we talk about the fertilization, the again fertilization categorized into two, that is a external fertilization and internal fertilization. So what is the difference between the external and internal fertilization, that you can see by this table? What is that? Internal fertilization means the fusion of male and female gamete inside the female body. So there is a more chances for the survival of the fetus. So this is the internal, means the fusion of male and female gamete inside the female body. If we talk about the external, as clear from the this word also, what is that? That when the fusion of male and female gamete take place outside of the female body, that we call as external fertilization. Now if something is meeting outside, means there is no fusion inside the female body, now obviously it is very clear there is a chances of survival of the offsprings are less. So in that case, to make it sure, okay, number of organisms must be survived, so therefore in case of external fertilization, animals lay out more number of eggs in comparison to the internal fertilization. So chances of survival of the offsprings are more in case of internal fertilization in comparison to the external fertilization. Examples: humans, cow, hens, or organisms. Those is having an internal. Here is the example I am showing: fish, frog, starfish. These are the example of external fertilization. So you can see by this diagram also, there is a diagram showing about the external and internal fertilization. This is the external fertilization. You can see very clear what happens. Eggs are released from the female body, and females sperms are also coming out from the from outside of the body, and they are meeting where outside of the body. So this is known as the external fertilization. Now in this diagram, what is there? There is an internal fertilization. You can see fusion of the male and female gametes take place inside the female body. So this is the difference between the external and internal fertilization, and that you can see very clear from this diagram. So this is the last event of reproductive stage, that is a post-fertilization events. Post-fertilization events means after the fertilization, what happens? That is a formation of zygote. So male and female gamete fuse and they make a structure that we call as a zygote. Now you know very well zygote is a diploid condition, means it is having a chromosomes number in pair. Now, the development of zygote, after the zygote, what happens? There is a formation of an embryo. That process is actually known as the embryogenesis. So it depends on that, okay, what is the type of life cycle organisms are having, whether they are having a haplontic life cycle or they are having a diplontic life cycle. On the basis of that, zygote change into the embryo. For example, haplontic life cycle means the male organism body is a haploid, right? Or zygote is a diploid structure. If it is going to develop into the main organism body, so the organism is diploid. But being a haplontic life cycle, zygote should be what? It should be haploid. So what happens in the haplontic life cycle? Zygote start dividing again by the meiosis division, and they form the structure spores, and that spores are going to form a new organism. So always the formation of zygote, and after that embryogenesis depends on what? Depends on the life cycle of the organisms. If the organism is having a haplontic life cycle, in that case zygote divided by the meiosis form the spores, and that spores form a new structure. But if the organism is have a diplontic life cycle, in that case what happens? The zygote by the simple mitotic division, or you can say by the simple cell division, they changes into a number of cells, and that number of cells overall form a new structure that we call as a embryo. So this is all about the events. When we talk about the embryogenesis, again there is a early embryonic development, there is a development of the multicellular structure, then formation of a blastula, then change of the blastula into the embryo. Embryo is having a layers that we call as a embryonic layer. So these all events take place where? In the post fertilization of the sexual. So this is the post-fertilization events. In that there is a two-step zygote formation and the embryogenesis. Again, embryogenesis, if we talk about embryogenesis, is again involves a two process. One is known as the cell division, and second one is known as a cell differentiation. Very simple, it can be understand what is the meaning of cell division. Now you know when the zygote form, zygote is just a single cell, and it change into a embryo, and embryo change into the fetus means a young body. So that is a multicellular structure, right? So how it happens? Just because of that, zygote undergo to the cell division by a simple process, that is a mitosis, means the same number of chromosomes pass to the next cell, right? And after that, when the all cells are formed, that time cells are going to be differentiate into a different layers: ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm, and these layers are responsible for the formation of different organs of the body or organs of the embryo. So this we call as a embryogenesis. Now based on the way the how the zygote develop, or how the zygote takes participate in the division, whether it is taking from outside of the body, it is taking inside of the body, on the basis of that there are two type of animals that we call as a oviparous animals and viviparous animals. So what is the difference between the oviparous and viviparous animals, that we will discuss. So difference between ovipary and vivipary, or you can say oviparous animals and viviparous animal. If we talk about the difference, simple difference, ovipary animals or oviparous animals lays, fertilize or unfertilized egg. If we talk about the vivipary animals, give birth to the young ones. Now if they are laying their egg outside of the body and they are unfertilized or fertilized, it means they should be protective. There should be some protection. So that's why In case of ovipary, the fertilized egg remains covered by a hard calcareous shell and led in safe place in the environment. And after that, there is an incubation period, and young ones come out or hatch out from the, in case of oviparous animal. In case of viviparous, and a fertilized egg develop into the young one inside the body of the female. So that's why they don't need any such kind of calcareous shell protection. Now you know what is that. If we talk about ovipary, the chances of survival of young one is less as the female lay egg in where in the open environment. So this is the difference again between the ovipary and vivipary, but chances of survival of young ones is more in comparison to the ovipary in case of viviparous animals, because there is a proper embryonic care and development take place inside the mother body. Example, if we talk about the ovipary birds and reptiles, vivipary, very common example, mammals like human, cow, lion, tiger, horse, rat, cat, dog. These are the common example of the viviparous animals. So this is a difference we can say between the ovipary and vivipary. Now if you see the oviparous and viviparous animal, there are the few example is there, that is human beings, dog, that I have shown already told you. So this is the diagram, that by that also you can see the difference or example of the oviparous and viviparous animals. So this is the embryogenesis. You can see by this diagram, as I have told you, embryogenesis complete in two, that is the cell division and the cell differentiation. So fertilized egg, this is the zygote. Fertilized egg, this one, fertilized egg, right? So this is a zygote, a single cell structure. It divide by a simple mitotic division into two cell, then 4, then 8, then 16, and after that it change into the 32 cell stage. This stage is known as a blastula, right? And after that it start developing into a mass of the cell. Then this mass of the cell is forming the tissues make the organ make the organ system. So like this way there is a development of fetus of 4 weeks, 10 weeks, 16 weeks and 20 weeks. So this is we call as a embryogenesis, means development of the embryo by cell division and cell differentiation. So this is the post-fertilization events in flower also. You can see in this diagram a very interesting thing, when the fertilization, after the fertilization, what happens in flowering plant. Actually in flowering plant, zygote is formed inside the ovule. This is the ovule, right? And after fertilization, all parts of the flower except this pistil, this we call as a carpel or pistil, so except that all the parts is going to dry and fall off. In some plants such as it, the question is given in your book also, give the name of flower of in which the sepals are persist and remain attached to the fruit. So this, there are the two example. One is the tomato and brinjal. So in tomato and brinjal, what happens, the sepals are persistent and remain attached to the developed fruit. So in what happens in ovules is going to be inside the ovule. The zygote develops several or divides several times to form an embryo, and wall of the ovule, you can say, so wall of the ovule becomes hard and develop into the seed. So this is the changes take place in the flower. And after that, with this development, what happens, the wall of the ovary also starts swell. As a result, ovary finally it develops into what, it develops into the fruit, which develop a thick wall that we call as a pericarp, right? The covering of the fruit we call as a pericarp. It is a protective in function. This is the main role of pericarp. And when seed mature, they are dispersed, and under the favorable condition, these seeds germinate and give rise to the new plant. So these are the events that take place in the flower. And very important thing, all the parts of the flower except this carpel is going to be fall off after the fertilization during the formation of fruit. This is the last thing that I want to show in this chapter. This is what is that, a few kind of fruits showing seeds and protective pericarp. So you have seen this diagram before also in a 11th class. This is the pea, tomato, mustard. In case of placentation, we have seen this diagram, right? So here what I'm trying to show is just trying to show a seeds and their protective pericarp. So this is one of the important thing that you should remember in case of all these kind of placentation. So here we are going to end this chapter, and after that I will send you one assignment and you have to prepare that, and we will discuss that. So here I am leaving with few of the question. I think you should go through that. You should uh, think about that ki what you have learned in this module. So you have learned in this module the post fertilization event. If we talk about the post fertilization event, so in case of post fertilization event, just give me the name of two events that take place in this post fertilization events. If we talk about the gametes, second question is that if we talk about the gametes, how many types of gametes we had discussed in this chapter? Or there is some special kind of gametes present in the human beings, that also you should know. So this is the thing that you should know. There are the few things also we had discussed: staminate, pistillate, monoecious, dioecious, bisexual, unisexual in the previous videos also. That also you should learn, or you should remember. These are the important terms that came in this chapter. So here we are concluding this chapter. Hope you will go through that and will understand that. If you have any doubts, please contact. Thank you.